Okay. Welcome to the July 28th, 2022 meeting of the Rules, Policy, and Governance Committee of the Tennessee Public Charter School Commission. This meeting is being recorded and will be available after its conclusion via link on the Commission's website. As a reminder, please make sure that your microphone is on prior to speaking, making a motion, or voting. Chase, could you please take a roll call of the commissioners?
Commissioner Tucker
Here.
is present. Commissioner Levine
Here.
is present. Chairman Patterson
Here.
is present. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Great. And I also just want to acknowledge my fellow commissioners who are here that are not on the committee, but thank you guys for being here. So first, we'll begin with a presentation on updates regarding the ASD application and rubric. Next, we'll have Ashley present an updated list of commission policies for us to vote on. And Ashley will also discuss the updated charter school appeals rule before we vote on final reading. Our last item today will be a vote on the commission's updated LEA policies. Are there any comments on the agenda before we vote to approve?
Do we need to approve the prior minutes?
We'll do that after we
Okay.
approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda. Do we have to move to approve the agenda?
Yes.
I just moved it.
I'll second that.
Great. Great. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Chase, does that vote suffice? I know I was probably supposed to roll call vote. Is that
No, you can do a voice vote, but if you'll just say motion is approved or motion is denied.
motion is approved? Okay. We'll next move to the minutes of the committee meeting that were held on March 31st, 2022. These minutes have been provided. Does anyone have any edits to make regarding the prior minutes before we proceed? Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes from the March 31 meeting?
I move to approve those minutes.
Second?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Okay. Let's move to the first item on our agenda today, which will be a discussion of the updated ASD application and rubric for those applying to the commission. I'd like to recognize Beth Figueroa and Maggie Lund to discuss these changes for our committee.
Thank you, Commissioner Patterson. Hello again. I am here to discuss the updates made to the ASD application and rubric ahead of the next cycle of applications. In 2021, the General Assembly gave the Commission the responsibility to evaluate applications from schools that are exiting the ASD, either by earning priority exit status or designation by the Commissioner of Education. Commission Rule 1185-01-03 defines the process for considering these types of applications, including that Commission staff will develop the application and rubric, which was used within our first cycle of ASD applications in 2021. After this cycle, the Commission reviewed the application and rubric with feedback from review committee members, internal staff, and school operators, along with some TDOE colleagues. Some adjustments were made to the ASD application and rubric, which I'll now run through. For special populations, we are proposing a couple of updates. Despite it being previously mentioned within the application, Commission staff felt it necessary to include a specific indicator regarding contingency planning for schools who were previously contracted with a resident district to support special populations. For some schools who recently transitioned, this was an ongoing conversation. To rectify this, operators should be aware that the resident district has no reason or obligation to provide any further services to schools who transition to the Commission with regard to special populations. The Commission believes operators should have robust contingency plans for this detailed within the application and should be discussed during capacity interviews. Throughout the application process, a question was brought up frequently with operators and review committees, was the issue of parent and family engagement. Commission staff has tweaked the language within the application and rubric to clarify what exactly warrants community engagement as stated within the rubric. Commission staff edited this section to clarify that the school operator should be able to demonstrate clear communication to families regarding their application to the commission and an avenue to collect feedback from families. Commission staff will also norm with review committees further about Attachment E, which demonstrates letters of support, contracts, and MOUs that warrant the school continuing to serve their community. Some other small adjustments were made to the academic section regarding school culture and discipline to add an opportunity for operators to showcase artifacts of positive school culture through either student surveys or artifacts. Additionally, review committee feedback also requested that the school calendar and schedule reflect all classes, not just core content classes, and this should include enrichment and other non-core content classes that are within the school day. Given the current climate and issues with staff recruitment and retention, commission staff have added an addition to the application to discuss the applicant's teacher recruitment strategy to attract and retain high-quality, fully licensed teachers. This is in addition to the reported attrition rates for staff, licensure requirements, leadership changes, and any adjustments needed during a transition to the commission. It's a nice sound effect. Next, the budget narrative. The budget narrative section of the application and rubric will need to adjust given the change in funding formula. Within this budget narrative, the operator should provide the requested historical information about schools' finances. However, they should also provide information regarding their enrollment, future TISA projections, and the transition from BEP to TISA. The commission also has a line item requesting contingency plans for any changes in funding, and this will not change. Feedback was received that it was, Feedback was received that it was unclear how past performance data should be captured within the application. Some schools offered more data than others and used the provided template, but others provided more of a narrative format. The commission staff has revised this application to reference again the data template provided to school operators with the application, and the rubric also prompts reviewers to reference it as well. This will just help it keep more consistent across applications in terms of past performance data. One major point of conversation during capacity interviews is the difference in current performance and anticipated performance under the Commission School Performance Framework. So this is something we discussed in the SPA committee as well. It's just differences in frameworks. In order to have school operators more appropriately address this within the application, Commission staff have added a reference to the Commission School Performance Framework in two key areas: discipline and chronic absenteeism, and then proficiency rates for subgroups. So this way the operator must address their current performance in context of the expectations of the performance framework that they will have when they transition under the commission. Additionally, commission staff recognize that operators applying this year will have to provide 3 years of past performance data. However, 2 of those years will either have no state testing data or be held harmless. So to address this, commission staff has requested that the school provide internal assessment data that is based on nationally normed or state normed benchmark assessments to demonstrate academic achievement and student growth. And this will supplement whatever state testing data the school can provide for the past performance of the 3 years. And finally, it was determined by commission staff that it would be helpful to have previous charter agreements that were used under the ASD for additional information throughout the transition. And so we just included this as an attachment to the application as a requested item. So next steps for this, we are hosting a webinar for all ASD schools that may be interested in applying to join the commission in 2023. This webinar will take place on August 23rd, and we will share updates about the application and rubric at this time. At this time, we do not have any information from the TDOE for schools that may qualify for this pathway, as we're still waiting on accountability data to make that determination. But as a reminder, intent to apply letters are sent to the commission in October, and all applications are received in November, and the commission will vote on all ASD transition schools at the January meeting. I will take any questions at this time.
We'll see you in January.
Commissioners, any questions? I think we do have a question.
We do.
Commissioner?
Actually, yes. First, thank you for adding the contingency plan for special populations. I think that's a great addition and a great lesson learned as we've started to transition and see that the loss of those centralized services. I just had one question. On the past performance review, the proficiency rates for subgroups, going back to our earlier conversation, is that 30 N size? I mean, is there any chance that they don't have to do that here because of the N size problem?
I think that's a good question. I think what this really meant in terms of performance by subgroup is because we're asking for internal benchmark assessment data. We just want to see that aggregated and broken out by subgroup performance as well. In terms of N size, I think that's something to keep in mind, but I don't think that, given that this is something that's coming to us through a transition, I think we can, given that it's aggregated, I think it should be fine, but
Okay.
we'll suppress as needed if there's a situation in which that would require.
But for purposes of evaluating the schools, you would be able to look at that
Right,
data
yeah.
and see what sort of achievement gaps there are
Yes.
for those. Okay, perfect. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Maggie, thank you very much. I just want to state for the record, while I was not in the room for the previous section that was led by my fellow committee chair, Richards, I did listen, and it was a very good conversation. So thank you for going through this for us, but certainly you guys covered a lot of ground in the previous committee. Thank you. The second item on our agenda today will be a discussion and vote on updated commission policies before the committee on first reading. I'd like to recognize Ashley Thomas again to describe these updated policies to our committee.
Thank you, Chairman. So the first policy that I'm putting before this committee is Commission Policy 1.100. I am proposing changes, well, in addition, actually, to address attendance by commissioners. Just to sort of begin the conversation, Tennessee law does require that the commission meet at least quarterly with a majority of the members entitled to vote here to establish a quorum. So for this committee, that would be 5 members. Because of the pandemic in 2020 and 2021, a lot of those meetings were handled virtually, and we were operating under Governor Lee's executive orders. Executive Order 78 did expire on April 28th of 2021, and without an executive order like that in place, it is expected that commission members attend in person. The commission is under the open meetings law, and so the only way that we can do a virtual meeting is if there's a necessity deemed by the commission. So with that as background and context, I'm putting forth this policy to introduce language that would sort of explain what we would consider an excused absence by commission members, as our statute prohibits missing more than half of the regularly scheduled meetings. The language includes for an excused absence to include illness, family emergencies, jury duty, religious holidays, and I've also included a caveat for unforeseen extenuating circumstances. So if a member needs to miss for an excused absence, you will be required to notify the executive director at least 14 days prior to the regularly scheduled meeting. And the executive director would consult with the chairman to determine if that's excused. I've also included steps to be taken if a commission member is found to be in violation of this policy. And so I'll pause here because I want to separate the conversation for regular meetings and our special called meetings. And I will take any conversation around this policy.
Great, thank you. Any questions, commissioners? Good. All right, we can move to the next item.
Okay, and just to be clear, for special call meetings, we would ask that the members notify the executive director within 7 days of that special call meeting, and that's necessary so that we can maintain a quorum to conduct that emergency business. So that is the only difference in those 2 meetings in the language of this policy. I'm not sure if you want to vote on that separate or if we want to go through both of the first reading policies.
Let's go through both of the first reading policies and then we'll take.
So the second policy on first reading is the school performance framework. As we stated, the authorizing team has done tremendous work on that, and there was a great discussion in the SPA committee meeting. I do want to pause to give this committee an opportunity to put forth any edits or any additional questions before it goes to a vote to move to the full commission.
Any comments?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was given the opportunity to make a lot of comments earlier, so I'm all commented out on that.
Thank you.
Well, I have I'm still looking at this section 8 on the attendance thing. So when not that I foresee that anybody would miss more than 50% of the meetings, but where it says commission, the commission may declare that a commission member's position is vacant. Does that have the authority of law? Meaning, if this commission declares it vacant, does that mean it's vacant, or does the governor then have to remove? Or
So that language was taken directly from the statute. So if the commission determines that position vacant, and then we would send word to the governor's office for a new appointment.
okay, so okay, got it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Questions? Okay, good. Thank you for going over that. Is there a motion to recommend adoption?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. And just for clarification, on first reading, that's correct. And that is Commission Policies 1.100 and 3.700.
We're just recommending it to the full commission for tomorrow.
That's
We're not-
correct.
Yeah, okay, just making sure I understood what I was moving.
Okay. The second item on the agenda is a discussion and vote on updated commission policies on final reading. The committee considered these policies on first reading in April, and I'd like to recognize Ashley again to review these policies we have before us, including any changes that have been made between our first and our second or final reading.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chairman. So since our April meeting, there were no changes, but just to recap for the committee, the changes to these policies reflect our appeals process. We are extending the time for schools to submit required documentation from 5 days to 7 calendar days. And we also indicated that capacity interviews would be conducted virtually. This reflects efficiencies that we were able to develop over our prior appeal cycle. And so unless there are further questions, I think these are ready for a final vote.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
If there's been no changes, can we move them all at one time? I move all of them at one time.
Yes, we can. Yes, so moved. Is there a second?
Want to know what kind of question second?
Is there any further discussion? Okay, we can take a. Yeah, sure. So just for the purposes of clarification, we are going to be voting for adoption of policies 1.300, 2.000, 2.100, 2.200, 2.200, 2.300, 3.200, 3.500, and 3.600 on final reading.
And 3.900. No?
We have that separated out.
Oh,
Yeah,
it
we've
is.
got it. Yeah, we're going to take that one
Oh,
separately.
forgive me.
So just those 8 policies. That's what we have voted on. We've made a motion, seconded, and now it is approved. Thank you, Chase.
Approved to recommend to the full commission.
That's correct.
We didn't actually vote yet, did we? No, we have to vote. I made a motion, she seconded it.
And
then
now
you-
we're
and
about.
then you read them out.
And I read them out. Now we're about to vote for
Right.
all those in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. All right, there we go. You guys confusing me on purpose today.
You're doing a fine job of that yourself.
I am, you're right. My goodness, all these numbers, it's the zeros that are throwing me off. It's the zeros. Where are we? Okay. At our March 31st meeting, the committee heard the presentation of a new policy for the commission. This is policy 3.900, concerning amendment petitions, and the committee provided feedback to the staff, and so I'd like to recognize Ashley to discuss updates that have been made to the policy between the first and the final reading before we vote.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chairman. So this policy, again, will apply to any petition the commission receives from the schools it authorizes, and it's a supplement to the requirements of the TDOE application. Since our meeting in April, I've reformatted the matrix, laying out the supporting documentation that the staff will review with an amendment petition. It shows the requirement that the documentation must be submitted within 7 calendar days of the staff's request. The policy does reserve the right for the commission staff to request additional information that is not listed in this policy. And as I said, it highlights that this is a supplement and not a substitute for the requirements of that application. I'm happy to answer any questions about this particular policy.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the policy. Well done by the staff.
And just for clarification, that's policy 3.900. Is there a second?
I second the motion to recommend approval to the full commission.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion passes.
Nailed it.
The next item on our agenda is an update on the commission's approved rule on charter school appeals. The committee heard this rule on first reading in March. And Ashley, could you provide an overview of this rule for the committee prior to a vote on final reading?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chairman. This is the final reading for the Commission's Charter Appeals Rules. It is 1185-01-01. Again, this proposed change is to clarify the time the parties have to submit requested documentation to 7 calendar days. It also notifies the parties that capacity interviews will be conducted virtually. I'm proposing this change to match, the policies to match the rule, but all of the changes need to occur. Upon a positive vote by the commission, I would file these rules with the Secretary of State.
Are there any questions? Is there a motion?
I move that we recommend approval of this to the full commission of 1185-01-01.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, the motion passes. The last item on our agenda today will be a presentation on the updated LEA policies. The updated policies are primarily driven by changes to state law by the General Assembly, and I'd like to recognize Ashley to review these updates for our committee.
Thank you, Chairman. So Chase Engel will be speaking to the full commission regarding the legislative updates at our meeting tomorrow. But the LEA policies before the committee for discussion and vote contain updates resulting from some of those laws passed or amended in the most recent session. I will quickly go through them and then, of course, pause for any questions the committee may have. The first policy is LEA Policy 1800, which reflects the change that allows an LEA to permit 2 virtual learning days. LEA Policy 4212. It introduces language that requires schools to conduct 2 remote learning drills. LEA Policy 4406 introduces additional language regarding school internet safety policies. LEA Policy 4605 clarifies enrollment for high school students that may graduate early. We've updated LEA Policy 5118 to remove the statement that the director of schools would be responsible for conducting training related to background information, and we're going to leave that responsibility to the school leader. LEA Policy 6313 contains updates to the student discipline policy, including permitting a teacher to confiscate cell phones if the phone is disruptive to the class or the student. LEA Policy 6409 is updated to include language that requires schools to submit contact information for its child abuse coordinator to the Department of Children's Services. And then finally, LEA Policy 6500 introduces the requirement of an annual behavior intervention training program. And in consultation with the LEA team, we've also updated this policy to reflect requirements of an IEP team meeting, after the use of restraint in certain enumerated situations. As these policies are already enacted by the commission, these would be adopted on first and final reading in accordance with our policy, but I will pause here for any discussion or questions.
Any questions or comments?
Yes, and I did speak with Ms. Thomas beforehand, so she's not surprised. So the restraint and seclusion policy, which is the last one you mentioned, And we can have this, I can do this tomorrow or today, it doesn't matter. My main question is, could we, as a district, have a policy that is more protective of students than the state law?
Yes, ma'am, we absolutely can. That's all right as a district. If that is something that is the will of the commission, we can adjust our language to whatever language the commission decides.
And I think this addition of the behavior intervention plan with the IEP is actually an extension. It's not required by state law, right? That's something that our team decided to do.
That's correct.
That is an extra protection. Okay, this doesn't have to happen now. I know this is a policy that's already in effect. For the restraint and seclusion of students with disabilities, and even more so students of color with disabilities, is stunningly disproportionate from other students. I pulled up the last data point, the national data point. When students with disabilities nationally are 12% enrollment, they are 79% of kids who are restrained, and 84% of kids that are secluded. And so it is a real issue, and our state law, which has been in effect for a while, is an attempt to address that. I would love for our commission to consider the language that is in the current pending federal law, which is probably not going to become federal law, or I wouldn't bother to ask us to pass it first, the Keeping All Students Safe Act. I can send you the latest draft of that. I've had the opportunity to actually weigh in on that draft, so I know it pretty well. And I just think it's worth considering. It's not that much different. It completely prohibits seclusion, although it defines seclusion so that it's clear it's not like timeout, and significantly restricts more than what's restricted in our state law restraint. And I think we should consider doing that. So I just wanted to mention that here today. I love the additions that are, I think, good protections, extra protections that we'll have as a commission that other schools in our state won't have, and maybe they'll take notice and pass them. But I represented kids who were locked in closets, and so I have very strong feelings about this law. So I just wanted to raise that since this was one of our policies.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner.
Well, I would want to learn a lot more about that. I mean, when I hear the word seclusion, I assume that there's definitions for appropriate seclusion. I don't think locking a kid in a closet is appropriate under any set of circumstances. Is that permissible under our policy?
No, it's not permissible
Okay.
under state law either. So seclusion is, actually you can do this, seclusion is specifically defined. It's defined in each state law. It's allowed in Tennessee. It's not allowed in some states. It's allowed in Tennessee in emergency situations, and an emergency situation is pretty poorly defined. It's defined in the statute, but not well defined. So the Keeping All Students Safe Act has a much more robust definition of when restraint can happen. It prohibits seclusion, but seclusion is defined as locked door, no ability to exit. It's defined in a way that doesn't limit. I mean, you shouldn't be locking kids in rooms they can't get out of. That just should not happen. And so it allows time out and, bringing kids to a certain area of the room, restricting movement in a sort of an ordering way as opposed to locking a door.
Got it.
So, but I'm not asking them to present the Keeping All Students Safe Act to us at this point. I just wanted to raise the issue. I'd love to share the language that's pending, and then maybe at some point we have a conversation, depending on what the staff thinks. Mm-hmm.
That'd be great.
I did want to note that this is a topic that is monitored by the Department of Education in terms of us as a district, and they are actually waiting on approval of this policy as a part of our comprehensive monitoring. So I just wanted you all to know that, and I'm not saying that we wouldn't pass it, but that this is something that we as a district are monitoring. We are monitored by the Department of Education, and we then have to monitor our schools on this. And so this is a very relevant topic of conversation right now.
Great. Commissioner, thank you for raising that. Commissioner, you have another comment?
No, I was just thinking.
Oh, yeah. No, thank you very much. And it sounds like you guys have already started a conversation with the staff, Commissioner Tucker. So I think it would be the expectation of this committee that conversation continue, and we do think about how the Keeping All Students Safe Act provisions, especially as it relates to the restraint and isolation policy for our commission, how it can be integrated.
Right, and just if I could, I'm not saying we pause this and do that. I'm saying I'd love to have that conversation as we move forward.
That's right. And so if there aren't any further questions, I would ask for a motion to approve on first and final reading for presentation to the commission the 9 policies that we just reviewed.
I would make that motion.
Do we need to number them?
Yes, we probably should. Would you like for me to do that?
I'll do it.
I'll do that after we have a second. Do we have a second?
There you go.
Or would you like to make a friendly amendment to your motion?
I'll move policy 1800, 4212, 4406, 4605, 5118, 6304, 6313, 6409, and 6500.
Second.
Okay. Is there, no. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, no. I think the motion passes. Chase, we're all good? Great. Thank you very much. And Commissioner Tucker, thank you again for your comment with respect to the restraint and isolation provision. And thank you, Ashley, for your presentation today. Lastly, thank you all for your attendance and participation at this meeting of the Rules, Policy, and Governance Committee of the Tennessee Public Charter School Commission. And before I ask if there are any final comments, I just want to remind the listening public and also our fellow commissioners that while these committee meetings, especially ours, go relatively smoothly, but for the chair's gaffes, there are an extensive number of policies that we review in advance. And because of the thoroughness of the committee members, because of the thoroughness of the staff, we don't have to spend hours upon hours discussing them in our committee, but we do take time to review them in advance. So I did just want to make that clear. While we read off these policy numbers, there is a lot that goes behind them, and I just wanted to acknowledge my fellow commissioners, staff, as well.
Yeah, can I make a comment? Because I mean,
Sure.
I think most people couldn't possibly comprehend how much work has been done by the commission staff, getting us started, getting us ramped up, dealing with all of the crafting of all of our policies and regulations and procedures in the short amount of time and in the middle of COVID. I mean, it's amazing. And so I just want to congratulate Tess and our staff who've just been, they are A+, 100%, the best I've seen. So congratulations, guys.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Is there a second?
Oh, second.
All those in favor? It's just falling apart. It's falling apart. It's the committee is adjourned. Oh me.
I'm sorry. Turn my back on.
Rules, Policy, and Governance Committee will be on October 17th, 2022. We stand adjourned.